Hey, ladies and gents, this is Mike Headley. We are back on the Headley Group Real Estate Show. Every time we have a guest on our show, I always say that we have a treat for you. Ladies and gents, what I mean, do we have a extra treat for you as well as a dose of experience, knowledge, and expertise. A gentleman who is very revered in the real estate and mortgage industry. And we reached out to him and he was nice enough to be on our show. So we want to give it up to the first president of a Rotary Club, the first Black Realtor, as well as the first Black-owned largest mortgage banking company currently in the country. We want to give a warm welcome to Mr. Ben Slayton. Thank you, sir. So we want to say thank you and for being on our show. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. I mean, it's truly an honor to have somebody of your stature to grace us with to be on our show. Because our audience is people who are seasoned as well as people just want to get into the business. And I think the information you're about to spew to us will be a whole bunch of great insight and knowledge. So let's dive right into it, shall we?
Sure, very good.
So, sir, what now? And we want to take it all the way back. And again, we was reading about you, and again, your catalog is so long here. First Black Realtor. We want to dive into that, and I take it this was back in the 1950s. Am I correct?
No, 1964.
In the 60s, 64. Got you, 64. Okay. So 1964, give us that drive to make you want to say, let me get into real estate. And even though we know from history books and watching videos, what was that climbing like?
Well, I saw the real estate business as a means to become rich. I was raised in a 400 square foot house that sat on 4 concrete blocks with no running water. No indoor bathrooms or anything of that sort. Matter of fact, we had to walk about a mile with buckets to carry water to drinking, for drinking water. However, and this was up the top of the hill, and when at the top of the hill where the pump was, there was a kid that we used to play with. His parents were educators, and they lived in a brick house with running water, indoor plumbing, and the house had a fireplace. And early in my life, I decided that I wanted to live that way. And I as I became successful, I was able to purchase that house until the freeway took it away. But it was the way that family lived, was the way that I wanted to live, and that stayed in my mind all of my life. And still today, I can see that house today, even though it doesn't exist. But that was my motivator of getting into the business, getting into a business that was going to make me rich.
So once you got into the business and you became a realtor, what was that? Receiving that designation, what was the response from the community? Like, how did people really look up? What did they think about that?
Well, it wasn't necessarily a response from the community, because the community that I lived in was basically a white community. It was a place called the San Fernando Valley, which is a very high-end city or groups of cities a little north of Los Angeles. So when I became a realtor, it was not something that was publicized or anything of that sort. It was just, the way it was. But it wasn't that easy. In 1964, you and I could not go to the Board of Realtors and say, give me an application, I want to become a realtor. You had to be sponsored by a realtor member just like the old boys country club. In 1964 was the middle of the civil rights movement, and no white person was going to sponsor me and be ostracized by their fellow realtors. However, I happen to have been adopted later in my years from my childhood, and I was adopted by a Jewish family, and they had a little money, and they found a white guy that would sponsor me. However, he charged them $5,000 to sponsor me.
Oh, wow.
$5,000 in 1964 was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 800 square foot house that you could buy almost every day. And this is how I became the first Black realtor in America, because I had the forethought that let's pay somebody to get it done, and that's how it happened, and that was in 1964. So there was no Black community, or the area where I lived in, the San Fernando Valley, was about 20 miles north of the central part of Los Angeles, where most of the Black people live, and it was just about maybe less than 1% of the population were Black in that community at that time. So it wasn't a community to get behind me and push me. It was me trying to get white people to come to work for me.
And speaking of that, I'm glad you ended off with that. Were you able back then to work with white clients,
Yeah.
or you were? Okay.
What happened was the young man that sponsored me, the white guy that sponsored me to become a realtor, he was ostracized. And so much that he had to come to work for me.
Okay.
And when he came to work for me, we were able to bring in white people as well as Black people. So it worked out. I mean, God does things in strange ways, but that's how it happened. So we had actually, by 1971, I had 4 real estate offices, about 80 agents, and I had an escrow company, mortgage company, insurance operation, and I built the largest independent real estate company in Los Angeles during that period.
What we do on our show, anytime we get a highlight like that, sir, we definitely give a round of applause. So we got to pause at that. That definitely is a round of applause. In 1971, 80 agents in one of the largest independent firms, particularly what we was going through at the time. So we definitely have to salute you for that, sir. Let's segue into you having the largest independent firm. Did that transition to you owning the largest Century 21 franchise at the time?
Yes, one of the things that my Jewish dad taught me was that any business that you start, you have to have an exit way out to get out of the business once you build it. When I started it as Slayton Realtors, and then I eventually decided, I need to prepare myself to be able to sell this. It's easier to sell a Century 21 franchise than it was to sell Slayton Realtors. So it wasn't a problem at all. Matter of fact, because of our size, Century 21 came to us.
Imagine.
And wanted us to join. So I didn't go after them; they came to us, and so it's not an easy transaction.
What so now you sold the franchise, and did that lead into the segue of you opening up or working in mortgages and banking?
Well, when I had the real estate company, I had a mortgage company because there's old saying that when you have a real estate business, and after you get to a certain size, if you don't own also a mortgage company, or if you don't own an escrow company, or if you don't own insurance operation, you're losing money. So I had already been in the mortgage business, but after I decided to get out of the real estate business, I sold everything, all the companies that I had, and I sold them to separate individuals or separate companies. I sold the mortgage company to a large mortgage company, sold a real estate company to a real estate company, and so on. And I took that cash and I started buying land. I started building houses and condominiums. And that's what I bought. I built the first condominium project in the country that were geared for selling to Black people. And in 1979, I had 76 condominiums under construction.
Wow.
Interest was 11% when I borrowed the money.
Wow. Credit card.
21% when I finished building them.
Ooh, boy, that's a major credit card.
Yeah. So I, fortunately in those days, there was a loan called the wrap loan. You took a first trust deed and a second trust deed and you wrapped them together and you got a lower interest rate. Fortunately, that was enough to pay off my construction loan. I sold enough to pay off my construction loan, but I was broke. All my money was tied up in these units. And at that time, I thought, oh, this is just absolutely crazy. But today, I still own half of them, so it wasn't all that bad, but it was terrible at the time. Matter of fact, I had to borrow $40,000 from my dad, and I opened up a mortgage brokerage operation in the San Fernando Valley, same place.
Okay.
And 2 years later, I had built it to a point where I was able to sell it to a publicly traded company. I sold it to a company called Johnstown America. They were the largest property management company in the country at that time. And naturally, they were white. They were located in Atlanta, Georgia. And I handled all the sale over the phone. And then they came out to meet me. And when they found out I was Black, they kind of backed off a little bit. But then they wanted to go see the office. So they went to see the office, and they found out that it was only one other person, that was my nephew, in the company that looked like me. The rest of them, looked like them. And they said, let's close the deal. So I became their president of their mortgage operations, stayed with them for 2 years. And then I took that, and so when you sell a company, at least in those days, you sold it for stock and for cash. So I took my stock and sold my stock, and I took that cash and I bought into a bank in Los Angeles called Western Bank, started up a mortgage operation for that bank. 10 years later, we sold the bank to US Bank, and we all retired. At that point, I decided, well, it's time to get married. So I married a lady that was number 3 or 4 under Cisneros, who was the Secretary of HUD at that time.
Okay.
And she moved from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles and took over the HUD operations. And eventually she got her 25 years in and she retired. So we both were sitting around doing nothing, and we decided that let's do something to keep ourselves busy. So we took one of our bedrooms and we started up a little company that we called QC Mac, which was a quality control company for the mortgage industry. 10 years later, we were the 3rd largest company in the country. And we sold that in 2006 and retired again. In 2010, I got a call from a young man that used to work for his mother. His mother was one of our clients, and he saw me take these companies and build them, and he wanted me to come and help him build his company. And here I am, retired, living at the beach in Los Angeles. He wanted me to move to Las Vegas, to the desert. But unfortunately, after I sold the QC Mac, my wife and I got divorced, and I was single, so I said, okay, I'll do it. And we became partners, and we built the largest he happened to have been Hispanic, and we built the largest Hispanic mortgage banking company in the country. So during that period, I'm 77 years old,
Okay.
and I decided that 3 years ago that I made my money for myself and my family. Now I wanted to do something for my people. So I decided that I'm going to start a mortgage banking company that is going to focus 100% unapologetically on Black home ownership. And that was the birth of Legacy Home Loans.
Quick commercial break. If you're interested in a career in real estate, or you're a seasoned vet and you might want to change, new environment, you don't like the atmosphere you're in, the Headley Group Realty could be there to assist you with your career. What do we offer? Great culture, great environment, leads, and an awesome commission structure. Let us be there to support your business. One thing, you got to be in the state of North Carolina. Let's get back to the show.
Well, so you said so much there that we have to unpack. I would want to say is, are you still doing any kind of development, or is that just for a phase? Or
no, that was just during that period. I own a lot of real estate, but I'm not doing any development.
Got you in development. Okay. Well, I did want to ask you. I want to peel it back a little bit, because we was reading about that back then was there lawsuit filed concerning a settlement for discrimination with the fair housing.
Yes.
Back then,
I was going through a divorce
Okay.
in the 70s, and my lawyer said that I couldn't go buy a home. I had to rent until we could settle everything. So I went to look for an apartment to rent, and I saw this complex that I really liked, and I went in, and it says there were places available, but they told me there was nothing available. So I accepted it, and I walked out. Just so happens I was the president of the San Fernando Valley Fair Housing Council at that time. And I went back to the office, and in those days we used to do testing. We would send people out to apartment building, and send a white couple to see if they could rent it, send a black couple to see if they could rent it, send a woman by themselves, see if she could rent it, send a man by himself, see if he could rent it. And we did all those things, and everyone was able to rent. All the white people were able to rent. All the black people that I sent were not able to rent that same complex. So I filed a lawsuit, and it was very successful, mainly because I happened to have been the president of the Fair Housing Council at that time, and I had knowledge that most people don't have or didn't have at that time about fair housing, and that's how I won that suit.
Wow. And like you just said, is that you knew you had certain information. Let me ask you something here. Considering at them times, if the right information was not available, such as you not having it or knowing the right people, I'm quite sure it'd been an uphill battle as far as winning.
Oh, absolutely. Knowledge is king.
So now let's transition to you being CEO of Legacy Home Loans, large African American owned mortgage company in the country, and you walked us to that point thus far. Currently, what exactly is your mortgage company, banking company, are doing for people that look like us?
Well, first of all, we are licensed in 36 states, and we have locations. We are licensed to do business in 36 states, and we have different locations where we actually have brick and mortar locations. We have Atlanta, Georgia, Buckhead, Georgia, Tucker, Georgia, Chicago, Illinois, Charlotte, North Carolina, St. Louis, Missouri, Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, and Los Angeles, Oakland, California, Las Vegas, Nevada. So we're kind of spread out, and we're opening offices in every city that has 25% or more African American population. And what I do is, once my branches become profitable, I take that profit and I open another branch in another minority community, so that we are hiring people who live in the community, training them how to get into the industry, and how to, and we also hire people that are knowledgeable, that are in the business, maybe work for other companies. But today, we get somewhere between 15 to 20 calls a day.
Wow. People
who looked up on the internet and wanted to do business with a Black-owned mortgage company.
Exactly.
That's unheard of. When I grew up, that never would have taken place. But today, we as Black people have a different thing about how we're going to do business with each other, and that is just amazing. I'm enjoying every minute of that. That is something I never thought I'd ever see or live through a Black president. Nor did I think that I would ever see where we are wanting to, going out of our way to do business with each other. That's unbelievable.
Perfect segue, because that was my next question. In terms of, like you said, you're 77, and here we are in 2021, in the middle of the year. And what's your take on real estate professionals in the industry, and how we are going about with the support and just the overall just supporting, just being there for each other. And I know you said you're proud of the progress that we made, but you can just shed a little more light on that.
Well, when I was younger, and we always used to call this crabbing, where you have crabs in a barrel, and one crab try to crawl out, and the other crab pulling back down.
Okay.
I don't see that today, especially in people under 40. The average age of people in the industry is around 55, especially, and I think in realtors, Black realtors and realtists, that is very true, that the average age is about 55. But those that are younger have a different idea of how business is to be done, and they have, they don't, they want to help each other. Where, in my days coming up, we weren't helping each other, except when you look at, the cities. When I grew up, we had Black doctors and lawyers and everybody living basically almost in the same community. And, we until segregation in the 50s, we kind of kept, were able to maintain our own. But after desegregation rather, we kind of lost some of the stuff that we used to have and depended upon each other. And now it seems like it's a complete reversal. Everybody, for me to get as many calls as we get a day from people that go on the internet searching, go out of their way to search to find a Black mortgage company, is unbelievable.
Well, do you think that contributes a lot from the power of social media, and do you use any social media?
Well, I definitely use social media, and I think that social media definitely has a lot to do with of how we have grown, and it's the marketing tool that you're used to. You're not used to doing. If you are an old timer like myself, where matter of fact, we did a little thing in South Carolina, where we were trying to figure out, do we send mailers like the old school way to apartment buildings and get people to respond? And we did a big mailing to that and found out that social media just beats the heck out of anything you can possibly do today.
Anything. And it's free for now.
Well, most of it is anyway.
Exactly. Well, most of it is now. And I just want to add to that. I just think that I'm very, very happy. Just in my years of living, just the progress and this the unity of people starting to, quote unquote, come back around and waking up and saying, hey, why not support my fellow woman, support my fellow man? Yeah. Because and it has nothing to do with not working with anyone else, but why not to do we do here to support someone that looks like you said, unapologetically. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone else does it. Why we can't do it?
Matter of fact, my segue to that, people ask me about that. I say, how many times have you been to a Chinese restaurant and saw anyone that looks like us behind the counter or serving the food? They support each other, and we have to do the same thing.
Exactly. I agree with you 100% on that, Mrs. Slayton. Mrs. Slayton, you've unpacked so much great wisdom and knowledge on us here. But I would like to ask, before we get to our golden nuggets towards the end, I would like for you to share a story, of your years of experience, one of triumph. You shared so much triumph, a little more detail where it can resonate with our audience to say, man, something I can do exactly like that gentleman did. Whereas though you helped a family out in terms of first time purchasing a property, or you gave a loan with someone, like share one of them insightful stories you have. I know you have a ton of them. Well,
I'll give you one on the real estate side first. My very first borrower or client at the time, I had a 1957 Chevrolet. This was probably 1960, 64, 65, something like that. And I took them out to show a house out in what they call Woodland Hills, which is a very glitzy area. And, my car broke down. And I had to send the clients back on a bus and send them back home on a bus. And from that, that could have been a point in my life where I could have said, this isn't for me. It just, and when I got back and we got back together with the client, they were so appreciative of the fact that I didn't give up on them and helped them get into to be their first home. They couldn't refer me enough, and that's really what it's all about. And as far as there's a story. No two real estate transactions are the same, never. And no two mortgages are the same. And there are people that call all the time that says, my credit is not quite what it should be. I've had some problems with my credit, and my income is not that stable. But you have to be able to, in our business, you have to be able to talk to people, find out what their problems are, and be able to have a solution for them as to how they can fix their credit, how they can, increase their credit score. But our people, and I'm sure it's all over for all races, but I don't deal necessarily with all the races because my focus is on making sure that Black people are homeowners. But I've divided us into 4 different sections. There's a group of us who needs down payment assistance, needs credit repair, That's about 20% of us. And then there's about 30% of us who, are hardworking people, honest, hardworking people that just go to work, come home dirty, and they that's what they do for a living, and they don't try to be any more than what they are. And they're just good people. And then you have the professionals that we're talking about: doctors, lawyers, nurses, people that yourself, real estate people who have attained some success and have pretty good income, and we have to serve those people as well. And then we have the high-end people, the actors, the music people. These people, they need service too. And we chose, in order to make Legacy Home Loans a household name within the industry for Black people, we have to serve all of the categories of people that we are. And we have this thing that says, we are you, you are us. Meaning that, we want you to understand that we're here for you, and we can help you do anything that is that you want to do, providing you're willing to work with us and do it.
Hey guys, thank you for watching our show. We're going to interrupt you real quickly. We are in the business of referrals. If you know someone looking to buy or sell, residential or commercial, here in the North Carolina area, refer us. We really appreciate that.
I like that. So profound. Well, Mr. Slayton, towards the end of our show, we usually ask our guests to provide 2 golden nuggets, right? You gave us probably about 25. But 2 golden nuggets, whether it be a scripture, a book, a quote, recommendation, anything that you may feel as though our audience needs to hear, and fire away.
Okay. Well, I have these things I call Slaytonisms.
Slaytonisms, okay.
And these are mainly for people in the business, not necessarily for people that are trying to buy homes or anything of that sort. And one of them is that you can't make money in business until you don't need to make it. What that means is, for you, we'll take for example, if you are coming to work every day and with your head down doing everything you possibly can do, you're in the trenches. Okay. In order to get out of the trenches, you have to reach a break-even point. Okay. That break-even point means that no matter if you come into the office or not, the company's going to break even. You're not going to lose money.
Right.
That is when you can start making real money. Once you have that point, then you can sit back and figure out how you're going to do things. But how you're going to do things and how you're going to grow your company. But if you are down in the trenches every day, you can't see.
Right.
You can't see how to do it. So you can't make money in business until you don't need to make it.
I like that. Is that the only quote for this? You got another one for us? I like it. You can make money until you don't need to make it. I'm going to use that.
Good. Let's see. Think of another one for you.
You got some great ones.
What happens is I'm talking to people, and as we're talking, I have a lot of them, but I don't think, and I can't pull them out.
Correct. Okay.
I want to pull them out, but as we talk, usually if something comes up, I'll tell you, hey, here comes a Slaytonism at you.
Slaytonism, I like that. Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is, again, thank you, sir, for it's been an honor for you to grace us to be on our show as the first Black of everything. And we wish you continued success with all your companies as you have in the past. We want to thank Mr. Ben Slayton, CEO of Legacy Home Loans, for being on the Headley Group Real Estate Show. And we'll see you all soon. Take care.